So this is my segment called Why I Vote. The goal is to basically get rid of polarization, especially at Cornell College's campus. So originally the goal is to get someone from the left and someone from the right to sit down, discuss their issues, and in terms of why they vote. Right now we have Mickey Hines, Cornell College running back, with us, and he's going to just tell us why he votes.
So the reason why I vote, I feel like it's like kind of your civil duty. I think it's your part to give back. And then also, I do believe that every vote counts, every vote matters, and I feel like you have to have some kind of sense about politics instead of people who are complaining about it or don't know anything about it. I like to be actually interested so I can say hey, I actually do believe in this. I voted for this.
Do you feel like there's a stigma when it comes to people expressing who they vote for, and if you think that, what do you think is the solution to fixing that?
Definitely do. I know a lot of people do think, if you voted for somebody, they think of you differently, which I don't. I really don't care who you vote for. I'm just glad that you did.
Yeah.
Awesome that you did. I would love to talk politics. I'd love to see what your views are so I can know you better as a person. I'd love to see how, why they voted for that so that I can say, these are my reasons for it. And just really open about it and don't, hate on them or do not get mad at them because they think this way, because everyone has their own opinion. You can't change that when it comes down to the end of the day. But, I just love to hear what people have to say about politics.
That's the American way, freedom of speech
Yes.
is a great thing. I don't think
Definitely.
there's anything biased about freedom of speech. Yeah, but it's always good to hear other students, that feel like it's a huge part, which it is. Voting, especially our generation, is significant, and it's really going to make an impact in future elections and how we really gauge, where the country's headed.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was cool talking.
Perfect.
Also, I have to say this on camera. Do I have your consent to use your face on camera?
Yes,
Thank
you do.
you. We're
You
good to
do.
go.
My name is Ethan. I am the president of the student body here at Cornell College, as well as involved in athletics and trying my best to be a student as well.
Yep. So, with your position, I know you have to be kind of unbiased and everything, which is totally okay. Do you feel that there's a polarization, not just at Cornell, but the entire colleges all around the country?
I definitely feel that there is, whether it's physical or it's social, there is oftentimes a divide between different identity groups, and it could even stem as surface level as the sport that you play. But there definitely is that polarization that you have between any grouping of people, really, and so whether you're at a small liberal arts college like the one that we're at, or you're at a large in-state institution,
Go Hawks.
go Hawks. You'll definitely have those that polarization really anywhere you group people together.
So, with your, I'm not asking for your views because I know you have to be unbiased. I don't want to do that, but with your own personal views, how do you vote and why do you vote?
Yeah. So by how do you vote? Do you mean which party I would vote for, or do you mean?
So how do you vote? Are you more of just I'm just gonna blindly follow, left, right, whoever you want to follow, Green Party? I don't, Or do you kind of just have your own beliefs, and so you're more you're diverse with, say if someone's even on the right, you would vote for someone on the right. It doesn't matter. It's just what's best for the country and your views.
Yeah. So I would think I was a fresh. Pretty close to fresh 18-year-old when we were allowed to vote in the presidential election, and then there's obviously much closer elections that are closer to home, whether you're in Minnesota, whether you're in Iowa, whatever state that you're in. But it's I found that I like to vote for the people I feel best represent the larger groups that whether those groups are marginalized, whether those groups have been marginalized for centuries. I find that those who offer what is best for the direction the country needs to go in, and at a more local level as well. So it's kind of there it goes. At a more local level as well. But I guess perhaps. It completely depends on who is running. I don't necessarily have a preference to either party at this time, but the candidate I feel is best or represents, in the best way, who who the you know
Yeah.
the direction that the United States should be going into, you know, whether that's diplomatically, whether that's internationally, domestically, and then I think it's extremely important to vote.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times people say, "What is my vote going to count for?" But I mean, in reality, you're not just another number. You're a person that person is supposed to be representing.
Yeah.
And so, voting is extremely important. It is the way to have your voice heard. Whether you do support a candidate or another candidate, whatever your beliefs are, because you know, talking one way about it can gain you influence, can change people's ideals, but in reality, voting is the direct and deliberate action to make change.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's really insightful. You know, it's coming from and just asking all these students, you know, like, okay, like, what are your views on it? How do you feel about it? It's really cool seeing how there is a pretty much a collective idea that it's a civic duty, and that it's so, especially nowadays, I feel like it's definitely needed. You know, if we want to see the country go in a good way, you know, it's really important. So it's nice seeing that you feel that way, other students feel that way, and that's something that isn't, you know, a divide. It's something that's encouraged. And so going off of that, so do you feel like since that's encouraged, do you feel like there should be more civil discussions going on, and that would really actually affect how people vote?
Yeah. So I mean, this past weekend I was in moderator training for sustained dialogue, which is their main purpose really is to promote discussion amongst really what we would consider in society sticky subjects. You know, difficult subjects to traverse through, to talk about. Because of the feelings that they invoke in individuals. But I think it's extremely important to have those discussions. There's a difference between a debate, there's a difference between dialogue. I apologize. It's really important to have those dialogues with people. I mean, it starts at a discussion and it transcends into a dialogue. And oftentimes I think we find ourselves trying to prove one another wrong or right, when in reality our perspectives are our own and they're unique to us, and I think we need to find a way to communicate those to people so that we can grow together. So I mean, I think it's extremely important to have dialogue. It's extremely important to have these discussions and keep an open mind through these processes, because without this dialogue that would then lead to voting or lead to change, you know, we'll sit stuck in our ways down a path that could be destructive, and we really wouldn't know if there is a better way.
Okay. But that was great. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Ethan,
my bad.
Adam, don't worry about it.
So I'm here with, your names?
Fiona. Miles.
Awesome. Nice to meet you guys.
Hi.
So this is our third video of Why I Vote. The goal is to just ask students at Cornell College why they vote. I have to be unbiased. I'm just a mediator. I'm here to just kind of get the discussion rolling. And so why do you guys vote?
Because I'm lucky enough to grow up and live in a democracy, and if I don't participate, I'm not really fulfilling that luck and that opportunity I have.
And Miles?
I agree with what Fiona said. Also, I feel like it's hard to complain about, I mean, I do complain, but it's hard to complain about the current state if you're not doing anything to change it.
Yeah.
So, like, when women's rights comes up, how do you guys vote on that?
Strongly in favor.
You're asking the gender studies student.
And that's
we love
you
women.
know, it's great to ask all spectrum of students.
Yeah.
So, what would you recommend? You know, you don't have to say it on camera. I know it can be a very touchy subject.
Yeah.
What do you guys like? Which side do you lean more towards, left or right, or independent? Or?
I'm definitely more liberal, leaning the left.
And you are too? Okay. So, do you feel like within the liberal, you know, kind of viewpoint, that views can differ, or do you think there's only like one answer and one side to it?
I think views can definitely differ, but I think that
There's some main points.
And I think those main points are really important because it gives everybody like a starting point and like a unifying force.
Okay, very cool. And so, do you guys have, has there ever been like a fear of saying who I voted for or anything like that? Or have you guys always been pretty open with it?
So I've only voted once, but I remember in 2008 wondering who my parents were going to vote for, despite the fact that all signs were clearly pointing towards Obama. I knew that I wasn't supposed to ask who you voted for, and I knew that it was something that just shouldn't be talked about.
Yeah.
And so I never asked them, despite the fact that my mom was like, I remember her watching a political ad and saying, every time I see an ad for him, I just want to vote for Obama even more. Just like, I was like, I wonder who she's voting for.
What about you?
I haven't voted yet.
Oh, okay, yeah. But now you can.
Me, but now I
we have voter registration here, which is great. So, 2 registered voters, people. This is great. So, like, I'll ask a few more questions, then you guys can go and everything, eat your chocolate, have a good time. So do you feel like when talking to someone who's more of who's a Republican or someone who just recognizes as more conservative, do you guys think do you guys have already a pre-made bias off of that, or are you guys more willing to be open about it? And you can be 100% truthful about it and everything. The goal is to kind of get the real dialogue and opinions of people. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just to kind of really gauge how the country, especially like our generation, we're going to be really important for the future of voting.
Yep.
I
definitely have a bias, and that's something I'm trying to work on within myself. But my instincts tell me that in this current very politicalized and very scary political climate in a lot of ways, that my mind is like, well, if I was formerly willing to claim the label of Republican and be like, oh yeah, that's what I think, but then with the current administration and all the scary and threatening things they're pushing forward, it would be hard for me in that position to still comfortably say I'm a Republican, and it's hard for me to respect and intrinsically trust people who still claim that label.
Yeah. Okay. How do you feel about it? About the same?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely have biases, but then I try to.
Yeah.
She was a little afraid to be on camera as it was at first. I'm sure she's great at speaking and everything. It's okay to be a little camera shy. But yeah, it was great talking to you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Great hearing your guys' opinions and views of things. It's great you guys are all registered voters too.
Yep.
And that's what I try to encourage.
Yep.
But yeah, nice talking to you guys.
All right, thank
Cool.
you very much.
No problem.
All right. My name is Riddell Lewis. Some things about me: I'm from Hawaii. I'm a sophomore. I'm a reservist in the United States Marine Corps. And I'm on the political spectrum. I'm pretty neutral, to be honest.
Okay. So, this being your second year on campus, how do you feel about Cornell's polarization, biases between liberal, Republican, or conservative? Do you think there's a bias on campus?
To be honest, I think that this campus is definitely more liberal.
Yeah.
For sure. I have friends that are Republican, and their voice kind of gets overshadowed at times.
Okay.
But like I said, I'm pretty neutral, so it's something I've noticed. Never had really strong opinions about.
Okay. Do you feel like that those biases and probably pre-made ideas of if you're conservative, you're like this, like that? Do you think that affects their voice in terms of hey, I voted for this person because, and all that kind of stuff, or?
Honestly, I think it does.
Okay.
I've spoken to maybe 1 or 2 Republicans pretty in-depthly so far, and they would tell me that they're not ashamed of their ideologies, but they wouldn't vocally express it often unless someone literally asked them. So they wouldn't go oh, I support Donald Trump, or I support this Republican candidate, or they're I'm for a free market. They wouldn't just go out and say that, although that's their ideologies, because they don't feel comfortable it's going to be a widely accepted view.
Okay, very cool. So let's switch it from them to you.
Right.
So why do you vote?
Well, I vote because I think it's very necessary to not only as a citizen, but try to get your feelings, your voice heard. For me, I try to find the candidate that is just like the best for the people in general. For the elections, it's more choosing a Democrat, choosing a Republican. But since I'm not very strong for either side, those affiliations don't really matter. So I really look as a person and look at what type of things they're trying to get passed.
So for like women's rights, how would you vote for that? Like, say we're in last election, down to, you know, Hillary, Trump. So on the subject of women's rights, how would you vote on that between those two?
Well, obviously I'm very for women's rights. Like, that's
obviously
pretty standard. But unfortunately, in some cases, even if one person is strongly for women's rights and another one isn't, that one person might not just be a good candidate in general. So even though I agree with their ideologies and their things that they want to get passed, they don't seem to me as a good candidate, so I wouldn't vote for them.
So it's not really about like, oh, women's rights or gun control. It's more of like, overall, who's the best candidate for this country, not just for my views, but also for, you know, the rest of the country's views.
Yeah.
Okay.
A good leader is pretty much my general consensus right there. As long as they're a good leader and they'll push the country forward, everything else will fall into place. Okay, I haven't heard that one today, so that's good. I like that. But I mean, I'm totally unbiased. But yeah, so okay. So with your military background, so like, how do you feel about gun control and like with all the, you know, you watch the news and it's like school shooting, company shooting, or whatever. How do you feel about that? That's a pretty good question. I've thought about it a lot. When I'm around the military and people with that military background, for the most part, they're pretty non-gun control. And their argument is that guns don't kill people, people kill people. And I've talked to people who are like very pro-gun control. Like, if you don't give them the guns, then they won't be able to do anything in the first place. But I'm at a stance of where I honestly think that people in general will find a way to be evil, regardless. I wouldn't say we should just give people more guns, but definitely have a better way of keeping it out bad of people's hands. I don't have like a strong sense of like how that would go, but at that stance I'm pretty neutral because I can understand both sides. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably say less gun control. So if that were put up to vote, or whoever candidate or primary or whatever is going on, that would be your voting stance on it. Definitely less gun control overall.
Cool. I mean, it's always good to like hear different views and everything. I know, especially with that being a really touchy subject nowadays, and the fact that, you know, I've had people tell me, no, I don't want to be on camera because I'm afraid of what people are going to say. It's nice to see that there are people who are willing to express their views and everything. Because would you agree or disagree that fear of not expressing your views, like how you would vote, do you feel like that would discourage conversation and therefore be a detriment or positive aspect for voting, especially for like college students who, you know, make up a pretty large population who's actually going to vote, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree in the sense that people are, let me understand this question. So I agree in the sense that people are less likely to express their views on campus. I think out of all the topics you can talk about on campus, political ideologies is probably the one that people talk about the less. And in that sense, because it seems like it's a very liberal campus in general, that mostly comes from people who are on the other side not wanting to discuss it with the other people because they feel like they'll be ostracized.
But yeah, it was nice talking to you, and and getting your view, especially for someone who serves our country, which is great. My dad's a colonel in the Army, so it's nice to have that conversation with someone who understands the military lifestyle and actually has the experience with it. And so yeah, it was good. Nice talking to you, man.
Nice talking to you.
All right. So this is our 5th video for Why I Vote, and yeah, let's go.
Hi, I'm John Regis. I am currently a sophomore here.
Okay.
I'm from Detroit, Michigan, majoring in biochemistry.
Okay. So it was a bit of a struggle to get you on camera, and you expressed that it was more, you had like a fear, and so that's what I want to ask you questions on. So, so the question is like why you vote, but do you feel like it's kind of like an iffy topic? Say, well, I vote on this or I vote on that on campus, or where do you think that stems from?
Well, I think all across America, America's really polarized in their views. I mean, even if you suggest that you're leaning one way or the other by saying, I support this, or I'm not sure about this, people will draw an opinion from that about you. And that will, for a lot of people, since a lot of people are just based in emotions, like they'll either say, oh, I like this person, or oh, I hate this person. Either way, you get people who hate you.
So why do you vote though? Is it more of just like it's like bandwagon kind of voting? Because I've heard of that. I've heard of just voting, saying, well, they're not conservative or they're not liberal. So how that goes. Like, oh, if there's 2 candidates, I'm going to vote for the liberal one, or if there's 2 candidates, I'm going to vote for the conservative one. Is that how you vote, or is it more just like on the issues?
It's more on the issues for me.
Okay.
Like, if there's someone who I've got to find someone who I really support, someone who has a lot of the same ideologies as I do.
So, like, were you eligible to vote in this last election?
I was not, no.
Okay. So I was going to ask you, like, let's say you were in that situation of Hillary and Donald Trump. How would you vote on that, or would you even vote on that, and why? If that's the case, why?
I would not vote for either of them.
And why do you say that?
There are a lot of reasons. One, I think a lot of it had to do with disrespect coming from both of the candidates. They did not present themselves in the best way possible. Definitely Trump was very disrespectful. He was also, I didn't agree with a lot of his standpoints, a lot of his issues. And then Hillary retaliated and kind of sank down to his level as well.
It was
so
interesting election.
Also, their ideologies, I didn't exactly agree with them completely.
So you keep going back to ideologies, and a few people have said ideologies. So for you to vote for someone, so like whether it be like on women's rights, gun control, etc. So do all the ideologies have to match your criteria, or is it more of just like, what's best for the whole country, including myself, or how does that work out?
There are a few things that play into that. I believe that my ideologies would be the best for the country. That's just my opinion, though. In regards to voting for candidates, I haven't found a single candidate who agrees completely with me, but there are a lot of them who have a majority of their ideologies that line up with my own.
Okay. So from that, so what are your ideologies, if you don't mind saying? You totally don't have to say that. It's just nice kind of gauging like how students are on campuses, not just Cornell, but other campuses.
Well, could you give some examples to start off?
So I have to say none of these are mine. I'm just doing that to be completely unbiased and everything. So like ideologies, like, okay, well, I know some people are like global warming isn't a thing, or the 1% shouldn't be taxed, or they should be taxed, or all just kind of like stuff like that,
Well, I definitely support environmental protection. Okay. That's definitely something that the government needs to put into play. But also, one thing that I've noticed is that the government is really inefficient with the money that it uses.
The debt. I mean, that's just a fact. The debt is absurd. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, other things also. My dad is a dentist, and the other day he needed to get a new compressor for his dental office, and he was going to buy one new, but then someone told him about this compressor that the government was selling. It was brand new, but it was for like 1/10 of the cost. They just needed to get rid of it. because like they built, they were gonna use it for like, I forgot exactly what it was for, but they just needed to get rid of it.
Okay.
So they paid for it, paid full price for it, and then didn't even use it, sold it for 1/10 of the price, which shows
kind of the lack of, like in companies, there definitely can be a product that's overbought. And so from what I'm getting from what you're saying is that like, they're not being wise about how they're spending money, and they're just like, oh, now we're going to sell for, a huge discount, and so that's just more money lost in terms of the national spending, by the federal government.
yes.
Okay. So your stance is more along the lines like you're going to probably vote for a candidate that says we need to switch up and really clean up how we're spending and how our national budget is, and et cetera, right?
Well, not only that, not only changing how we're spending, change, I guess, economic oversight in the government. I believe that we need more oversight. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, apart from that, I guess some other ideologies would be, tying into that, I don't believe that the government should be taking so much money from the citizens just to waste a lot of it. Taxes are fine, they're necessary, but wasting money?
Yeah, I feel you on that. I can express that, from California, so taxes are super high, not, my paychecks and all that kind of stuff, so it definitely sucks and everything, so, there's that. But yeah, okay, so I'm going to ask you a few more questions if that's okay.
Yeah.
So another question I have is, so on campus, just going back to on campus, you're a sophomore.
Yes.
So coming in to Cornell, did you hear about Cornell and any of I know we made the news a couple times about some very, God, it was bad. Just the huge, it was right after the Trump election, huge polarization, that rift that just, divided the school. So coming into that, did you feel like, if any ideas that you're going to have, okay, how you're going to vote when you are eligible to vote, did you feel like that might impact how you voted because of a kind of like a pressure into voting that way or saying things that way?
That's a good question. When I vote, you go into a voting booth, you vote on your own, so no one knows really how you vote unless you go out and say how you did. So I don't exactly see a lot of pressure there. In regards to changing ideologies, colleges are generally, are in general liberal.
Yeah.
This campus is a very liberal place, so I'm definitely getting a lot of influences. I'm being provided a lot of different ideologies from that side, while more conservative views aren't exactly as expressed here.
So do you think that those conservative views should be equally represented and discussed on campus in terms of, just as we respect liberal views, you would hope it would be the same for conservative views, because that's how you really create political conversation, and both sides can really gauge, okay, I like this, I don't like that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like no hate, all love. We're just trying to gauge ideals and everything. So do you think that kind of conversation should be used on campus rather than from reading the news, you can see, how, in colleges, especially private colleges, are like, hey, well, we need to lock this down, can't talk about this, can't talk about that. So how do you feel on that?
Well, I believe it all comes down to respect for each other. Also, I believe to a certain extent it's keeping emotions out of discussions.
Yep. Totally believe that.
And that's difficult for people. We're emotional people. We're emotional people, but at the same time, I believe that both viewpoints should be expressed well. As long as it's in a respectful manner, in a way where you're not purposely trying to offend other people.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And my last question is, are you registered to vote?
I am not registered to vote, but I am getting registered right now.
Yeah, we gave them the form. That's all I wanted to, we got to get that across. But yeah, it was nice having you on.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Just having this conversation with students and really gauging their thoughts and really giving not just myself, but the rest of the country and especially the community at Cornell a glimpse of how students think. And the goal is from this is that the left isn't bad, the right isn't bad. What's bad is when people take those to extremes and they make things difficult for anyone to participate in the voting system, to suppress voting freedom and everything like that. Because at the end of the day, we're just humans. We're trying to live our lives.
Yes.
And having the ability to discuss things that are should be discussed is a nice thing to have, and it really creates not just trains of thoughts, but it creates a community of people who actually want to think about the processes that are going on in our country and break it down and make the right moves for them personally or for the rest of the country. It doesn't matter. It's that freedom to vote and using that right to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, it was nice having you on.
Yeah,
I
it was
appreciate it. So this is my last video of the day for Why I Vote. I'm with Trey Porterfield, running back for Cornell College. Just had a really great game. Just Mickey Hines and Trey just tore it up. But yeah. So the question is, why do you vote?
I vote to give opportunity to everybody. I vote based on views. I don't go off of color, party, or anything. I vote based off what you can bring for me, my family, and everybody around you.
Yeah.
So voting is important. Everybody should vote. And it gives opportunity to people who grew up without one.
So would you say you're an independent then?
I would say I'm
Okay.
independent. Yes.
So so I've asked people about women's right, how do they vote on that, gun rights. So for you, it's more just like the safety of people and everything. So regardless of I kind of lean towards that person or that person, it's about the overall picture of it and how everyone's treated in the long run. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so being a student here, this is your second year, you're a sophomore.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Cornell's environment when it comes to say one person says I'm a liberal, another person says a conservative? How do you think that conversation would go?
Being at Cornell for a year, I've seen a lot. I've seen liberals who, I'm not gonna get into that, but I've seen people who say they care about everyone, but once you give your opinion, they tear it down like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's like the people who classify as something outside of what they are, you can say something mean no harm whatsoever, and they attack you the same way they say they're getting attacked.
Yeah.
So it's a double standard here.
Yeah. Okay.
They look down on people who has their opinions, but yet they can have their opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't think the environment is not perfect.
Do you think that campuses, not just at Cornell, but the rest of the country, deal with this? And do you think the solution for that is by, saying, okay, well, that's an issue, so why not create conversation between the two groups instead of limiting it?
That's actually what's happening around the campus.
Yeah.
A lot of people are creating conversation, and with the conversation, it can quickly go from a conversation to an argument.
Yep.
And it's not even meant to be that. It's meant to be a safe spot where you can give your views, but when somebody thinks your view isn't right, it automatically becomes right and wrong, then opinion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's good having you. I know you're in a rush and everything, so I just appreciate you coming on and giving your thought about it. It's nice getting views from the whole campus of Cornell and everything, and so look out for Trey, look out for Mickey. It was great having them on. They're going to destroy it this year. Go Rams. So I thought it was going to be my last one, but we have one more. It's great to have Jack on board, and let him introduce himself. You can come in a little, Scooter, get a little closer. Yeah. So there you go.
I'm Jack Bowmaster, and I am a junior here. and I'm majoring in political science and English. I don't
Okay.
know what else you want me to introduce myself with.
Oh no, that's enough. Okay, so the main question I have to ask you is, why do you vote?
Well, I think that there's a certain responsibility that each of us have, and you know, we talk a lot in class, at least in the political science department, about what kind of impact does your voting have, and what can that do in the future. And I think that everyone should feel this kind of sense of responsibility to your community and making a difference, and the only way that you can really make a difference is through voting. And I think that it's important for everyone to kind of have their own perspectives heard and understood.
Yep.
And
Okay.
represented. It's good to make sure that you're seeing yourself represented in either local government or overall the overall governmental system.
So, I've had plenty of classes with you, and these are always hot topic, debatable responses, questions, stuff like that. So, do you feel that there is a polarization on campus, and do you think it's detriment to how people are voting and being open about their thoughts on voting and why they vote personally?
I think there's a strong polarization on campus, and I think that being someone who maybe is not in the majority here on campus, I see it probably a lot more than others. But you experience it everywhere. You experience it in the lunchroom. You experience it in class, in just one-on-ones with other students, that kind of thing. You see that there's a very clear divide. If you're not in the majority, it's kind of hard to talk about your own opinions. And people feel very strongly, I think, about the convictions they have, and I think that's good. But I think there's a point where people feeling as strongly as they do comes across in a negative light because it suppresses people that have the other opinions. You have the silent majority. You have that classic saying, and I think that's really true. And not that necessarily there's a silent majority anymore, but there's definitely a proportion of Cornell students who are silent because they either don't want to have their opinions affect their grades in class, they don't want to have their opinions affect their friendships, that kind of thing. And I think that can be a detriment. I'm not sure how it affects voting per se, but I think being socialized in an atmosphere that is predominantly one way over the other, you're losing sort of an exploratory aspect of what Cornell should be encouraging. And so people aren't able to explore, this is the right side, this is the left side. They're only getting, one part of that spectrum. And I think that can be a detriment, because if you're voting with a one-track mind, then, I mean, what good is voting? You're going to keep voting the same way, even if the problems aren't being fixed. You should have a wholesome conversation so you can actually address any problems that exist.
Yeah, I mean, so you were eligible to vote for the last election, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so that's a great thing that you said, because do you feel like that election really it really did that? Like what you said, it made people say, well, I don't care if this person has a view I like, because I recognize as a Democrat or Republican, I will not vote for that other candidate. Do you think that was something that was relevant?
I think that had a lot to do with it. People see, they're a Democrat or they're a Republican, and you're automatically stigmatized in one group or the other. You're either the good guy or the bad guy, and people don't want to have a conversation, especially here. They don't want to talk to you about your side because it's their way or the highway. It's not really much of a conversation anymore. It's more, I've got my views, you've got your views, we're going to stay in those views, which I think is a detriment to everyone, because you need to be able to have an open dialogue and an open conversation to actually address the problems that exist. Without them, without addressing that, you're going to have problems. If you don't address the actual problems, you're going to continue to have those problems.
Because do you see yourself as a pretty open-minded person?
I think I'm really open-minded. I mean,
I know it's a bit of an egotistic question to ask someone.
I think I'm pretty open-minded, though. I like hearing what other people have to say. I like knowing why they say what they say, and I like doing a little more research into what they're saying. I'm a very big proponent of everyone should be able to say what they feel and what they think, because no one's going to change their mind, and no one's going to become a better person if they're not able to speak their mind. If you closet a view, you're not going to do anything. I think a classic saying is the best disinfectant for any view is sunlight. So,
Yeah.
you got to allow people to say
Yeah.
what they want to say and then evaluate what they're saying from there.
Yeah. So it's safe to say that you are a conservative Republican, or do you lean independent with a lean to the right, or
I don't know. I've always had a hard time putting myself in one category
Yeah.
or the other because I feel like I am pretty open-minded. But for the most part, I just don't like it when I'm very big into very limited government and very little interference in my own personal life. And I think that's just kind of a good way to go about it because, what I think is what I think and what you think is what you think. And we should be able to meet some kind of common ground. I don't want it to be a Republican solution or a Democratic solution. I want it to be the best one. And I think there are times where I find certain candidates, they tend to have the solutions that I think are, the best solution. And that's kind of the way I vote.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think that's good to hear because I feel like a lot of people, and I know I can't really say I feel because of the bias there, but I just from talking to multiple students on campus through this, they tell me, there's a spectrum. There's of this voting, that voting, and that disconnect from both sides being able to actually come together and make conversation that might change their mind a little bit and might affect how they vote. So it's good to hear that not from just 2 or 3 students there, but it seems like a consensus going on of that. So I'll ask you a few more questions. That's okay.
Oh yeah.
So personally, do you feel like your voting has been changed by because a lot of students said there is a majority liberal students here. It's a liberal arts school, kind of expected. It's college, it's kind of expected. But do you feel like that has changed your views of voting, or have your views constantly been like the same, or
I don't know. I think my views, I don't think they've necessarily changed per se. I think they've molded into different arguments and different, I'm learning, I'm getting different different arguments here, different arguments there, and I'm gaining perspective, which I think is important. But I wouldn't say that my voting habits have necessarily changed. I think, we've talked a lot about this in class. I think my voting habits are pretty concrete and solidified at this point in my life. And I think that's probably true of a lot of people, but there's definitely room for discussion and change because if we're not flexible, then, what good is anything?
Yeah, you don't learn. You gotta be lifelong learners.
Exactly.
So, that's good. So my last question is, one, are you registered to vote?
Yes, I am.
That's great.
I have already voted.
Oh, there we go.
Actually, early voting opened over block break on Friday in Minnesota, so I voted on Friday.
There we go. That's great to hear. That's the goal. That's what we want here. Part of CEEP, we want people to vote and be engaged in voting. So it was nice having you on. It's nice being able to talk and feel free. And this is our safe place to talk about what's going on and how you feel about it. Just as any other students, we're free to come up here. We plan on having this maybe a few more times this semester, and so.
Well, I hope I can join you again.
Yeah, definitely. The goal next time is actually have someone who's more liberal, someone who's more conservative, be able to come face to face and talk about this.
That'd be a lot of fun.
I know there are a few people that actually wanted to do that before, and they were just like, never mind, I don't want to do it now because I'm kind of, they're afraid, and we want to open dialogue. And so I feel like these videos are really going to help with that and say, okay, maybe they're not so bad, and maybe they're not so bad on both sides. So that's all we want at the end of the day, open dialogue and the feeling of safety when discussing that. And so,
Well, cool. That's fun.